Good afternoon, dear viewers. I'm Father James Wangai Kabata, Rector Consolata, Institute of Philosophy, a conventional Franciscan friar, and today we continue with our philosophical discussion, trying to get the meaning of philosophy to our daily lives. Last time we spoke about the dialectic method of Socrates and how this dialectic method can help enhance good communication in the families. But today, looking at what is going on in the society, since the students, they don't go to school, the young children are staying at home with the parents, and sometimes the parents are absent. Today we are going to look at what the philosophers would say, or what would be the view of philosophers concerning good parenting. And therefore our topic today is good parenting in the philosophy of Jean Jacques Rousseau. Jean Jacques Rousseau is a philosopher of 17th century. He was born in 1712 and died in 1778. And he had a phrase that we always use, sometimes not knowing from the origin of this phrase, that man is born free but is everywhere in chains. But the discuss today from this philosopher Jean Jacques Rousseau is children are born as inherently good, but they are corrupted by the society. A philosopher of the 17th, 18th century already had that in mind, that when we are born as children, children are innocent. Why do we have corrupt children? Why do we have bad children? You know, in the past 1 week, we have been hearing very many stories about young people, teenagers being found in a den where they drink, they smoke, they engage in all types of orgies. And this make us ask ourselves, but what is wrong with our society? Why are the children behaving this way? So today, using Jean Jacques Rousseau, we are going to analyze some of the things that probably he spoke that are still relevant today, all those hundreds of years back. Yeah, he was born in Geneva in Switzerland and raised by an aunt and uncle, just because the parents died at his tender age. And we shall see that this also influences his upbringing and his thoughts. So at the age of 13, he was sent to another family to be an apprentice of or to know how to make things like rings. But again, 3 years later, Jean Jacques Rousseau ran from that family and went to a certain place where he worked as a secretary of a rich woman. And this rich woman and the lifestyle that he lived there influenced his philosophies and his ways of thinking. After that, he wrote novels, he wrote philosophy, he wrote operas, he wrote almost on everything that you can talk about. He believed that human beings are born good. You are born good. But it is the society which is evil that corrupts the people. So each and every person, when we are young, we are not born as evil people. We correct the evil as we grow up. And that is why at the end of the day, he proposed a kind of education for kids that will not let them be corrupted by the society. Even as we are hearing of these young children who ran away from their families, they were caught in a house of an adult. So it is actually the adults who are not well formed that are involved in the corruption of the young people. Jean Jacques Rousseau considered science and art as a kind of as some of the social institutions that are also used in corruption, corrupting the young mind, the music, the science, the literature, what children listen, what children read, what children watch, all this is involved in the corruption of the young child. And therefore he believed that the only way to get back to that goodness of which we were born with is to be as much as close to the nature as possible. And therefore his model of education is not the model of the towns, it's the model of going back to the roots, going back to the nature. And therefore he wrote the social contract, where he explained his political theories of how each individual must surrender some of his or her rights to the society, so that in this social contract we try to live together as a family. This social contract is good for us to note that it is among those ideologies that brought the United States Constitution as well as the French Revolution, because the thoughts of Jean Jacques Rousseau as a philosopher, his philosophical theories, his social theories in the social contract were very, very radical, and they made many people think, because when he tells you that you are born free but people have put you into chains, you also want to discover how, if I'm born free but I'm in chain, why is it so? And for Jean Jacques Rousseau, it's because humans are corrupted by the society. And therefore, if we are corrupted by the society, we must enter into a social contract that we can be able to recognize our collective good. Because we are good, I'm good, but the society is the one corrupting us. So all citizens, according to Jean Jacques Rousseau, should participate and should be committed to the good of all the people for the common interest. And therefore, he was a big supporter of the education system, whereby we first have to recognize that we are born weak. If we are born weak, we need strength. We are born helpless. If we are born helpless, we need aid. We are born foolish, and if we are born foolish, we need reason. We lack all this, but when the society is trying to educate us, they end up educating us in a very corrupt manner. I always think sometimes of some people who would rather not be very corrupt, but they are corrupt because of the people who surround them. Think of 5 policemen in the traffic patrol, and 4 would like to have some bribe, and 1 does not want. That situation becomes very difficult for the non-corrupt police person just to say no, because the others also want to say yes. And therefore it becomes something that it's very difficult. So it is true that the society can really influences the person and bring corruption in the person who was not corrupt. He wrote a novel of his child Emile, where he emphasizes that you have to let the child express his own passions, and you have to give the children an environment of learning whereby their own curiosity will be able to bring a well-balanced and a free-thinking child. So what he saw is that everything is good as it leaves the hands of the author of things. Everything that is originally made by God is good. But then the society, as somebody is going, the society corrupts the people. So according to him, what is the role of philosophy in education? The role of philosophy is to make a man, to change a man into a citizen, or to change a boy into a son, or to change a girl into a daughter. Because sometimes there is a difference between a boy, a young man, and a son. A son is the one who listens to the parents, is the one who seeks advice from the parents. But a boy is the one who grows with the other boys and seeks advice from the strangers. So nature means that the young person must be allowed to cultivate their own minds, to follow their own passions, to think of the best way into which they want to live their lives. And therefore, even at the end of the talk today, I will try to discuss the 4 types of parenting, whereby you realize that there are parents who are so authoritative that they don't allow the child to express himself or herself. So these parents, what they do, they make the children be focused on personal gains or the wishes of the parents and not their own personal interest. And therefore, the theory of education that Rousseau proposes is a theory that emphasizes the importance of expression and well-balanced and a free-thinking person. Because he believes that if children are allowed to develop naturally without constraint imposed on them by society, they will develop towards their fullest potential, both educationally and morally. So the society must let the children grow freely. But of course, as from the previous talks following Nicomachean ethics, teaching them the golden mean, that the virtue is in the middle. When you are too authoritative, the child develops some bad attitude of the father figure or the mother figure, and they feel so ready to reject the propositions of the parents, the teachers, and the adults. And therefore, even when you quarrel your children, sometimes they don't mind you. They don't even listen to you. They just say, he'll talk, he'll finish. Even if you beat them, they are not, because they are not morally formed into accepting their own growth, into following their own growth. So among the competing philosophies characterizing children and their education was the notion that innate internal forces were the driving forces that help the child to develop. So even the child has a moral conscience. There is a conscience within the young person after the 7th year that makes the child think, what should I do? What is right for me to do? What is wrong? And that is why you see even a child, a teenager, doing something bad is checking whether somebody is seeing. Because there is something inside the young person, there is a seed that is inside the young person that says, I think this is not the best way to act. Now, how to nurture this in a free society is what we shall begin in the next talk, to see how, because what Rousseau is saying is not that you let the children grow on their own, but he is asking the parent to help the children find their own motion of growth in a free society. Because if the parents are not involved, as we say in Swahili, asiyefunzwa na mamae hufunzwa na ulimwengu. There are people outside there ready not only to teach your children, but to indoctrinate them, to make them believe in ideologies in which they are just like, at the end of the day, they are just like slaves of their masters. So after the break, we shall be able to discuss the next part and also discuss the 4 types of parenting and see which of these 4 types of parenting that Jacques Rousseau proposed for the best development of a child. Let us meet after the break. Thank you.
Amri za Mungu. Ndimi Bwana Mungu wako. Usiabudu miungu wengine. Usilitaje bure jina la Mungu wako. Shika kitakatifu siku ya Mungu. Waheshimu baba na mama upate miaka mingi na heri duniani. Usiue. Usizini. Usiibe. Usiseme uongo. Usitamani mwanamke asiye mke wako. Usitamani mali ya mtu mwingine. Amri za Mungu.
Kupata
amri za Mungu
kama sikiza tune yako, bonyeza neno sikiza likifuatwa na nambari 738-102-51. Sakramenti ni nini? Na misingi yake iko wapi katika Biblia takatifu? Wavijua vipindi vya kanisa Katoliki? Ni alama na vyombo gani vinavyotumika katika maadhimisho ya ibada zetu? Ungana nasi kila siku ya Jumanne saa 1:30 jioni katika kipindi cha Sakramenti na Biblia. Ni kutoka hapa Capuchin TV, tukiikuza imani Katoliki kwa pamoja. Liturujia Katoliki, sakramenti, kuungama, ekaristi, sala, nyimbo, neno la Mungu, ibada takatifu. Jiunge nasi kila siku ya Jumapili saa 1:30 usiku na Jumatatu saa 4 asubuhi kwa liturujia Katoliki na Padre Boniface Mukwe.
Thank you very much and welcome back to our session today. We are discussing Jean Jacques Rousseau, who said that children, when they are born, they are all good. They are born inherently good, that inside each and every person at birth, we are all very good. What happens is that as people grow up, they are constrained by the society, and the society makes people evil, or make people make evil choices. Because in the beginning, when the child has not developed completely, is only gaining from experience of the parents. There are some other philosophers like John Locke or David Hume in the 17th century. Those are the modern philosophers who also proposed like the theories that man is born tabula rasa. Tabula rasa is from a Latin word, a blank slate or a blank plate, something that is not written. So people are born that way. There could be innate ideas within you that you develop, but as a child, each and every person is so innocent. But what the child collects from the society is what influences what the child will be in the future. And that is how even corrupt people are trained. We have been trained to be corrupt by the society. You can realize that children who are born in an environment which is peaceful, they tend up to be peaceful children. Children who are born in an environment that is so harsh, hostile environment, they learn to be hostile themselves. Why? This is because the society does socialization. And that is why sometimes even we have problems between maybe the African mentality and the American mentality in some ways. There are some children who are born in societies in Africa and they will never accept some proposition or immoral propositions proposed by young men of other societies. But those other young men of other societies, like let's say the United States, since they were socialized in a society where some of these things exist and they have seen them and they have seen them those things happen, they end up embracing some of these values or vices. They could be also vices. And then they become part and parcel of them. And this is what we call socialization. That as you are growing up, the society is also forming you. And therefore, that is why you see people of the same environment, people of the same area, sometimes they end up behaving in the same way. This is the social behavior. The characters tend to be the same because this is what they believe. People who are born in societies where they are told children do not cry or men do not cry, they don't cry because, not that because they have no tears, but because they have been socialized to think you cannot cry. So according to Jacques Rousseau, all things are as good as their creator, that is God, as their creator made them. But everything generates in the hands of men. All our customs are nothing but subjection. They are kind of confinement and restraint. So a civilized man is born, lives and dies in slavery. As long as he wears the human form, he is confined by the institutions. And it is good for us to know that the institutions, the governments, the schools, the churches, these are the institutions. They help in forming the moral consciousness of the people, and especially the young people. So this kind of picture that Rousseau painted for the society, it is a kind of society where people are born with a lot of goodness in themselves, but then somehow the society end up corrupting that goodness. And this you can see also in families where a young man, very polite, kind, peaceful, marries a lady. But if this lady is oppressive, is the noisy type, the one who brings a lot of chaos, slowly you see the young man also starts changing from being that kind, good person into being a very rough person. It can happen the same with the ladies. Ladies who have been born well and raised well by their parents, they are kind, but they go into an environment where the husband is oppressive. And at one moment they start also subjecting their own anger into not only themselves, but into to their husbands and to the whole society. So the people you stay with somehow influences or corrupts you. They can also make you be good. In the story of Emile the son, Rousseau writes of the importance of giving a child freedom to grow without the intrusion of adults. Now, sometimes the children are suffocated by parents because their parents want the children to live their own dreams. Themselves, they couldn't achieve what they wanted, and now they want the child to achieve that. And they subject the child into a kind of life where the child has no choices. The young man has to live according to what the parents want. And I know somebody who did law up to the end, and then now he is a business person, because he told me, myself, I just did law for my parents. My dad is an advocate of the High Court, and my mom is an advocate of the High Court. They wanted me to be a lawyer, so I studied, I finished, and I went to business. I have no business standing in the bar. And this is why you see now, what kind of education was this? It was education to satisfy the parents, not to help the child or the young man grow into an adult. So subject your children into some kind of freedom whereby they get enthusiastically involved in their own education. And how does this happen? It happens using the method also that I discussed last week, the Socratic method, listening, dialogue. Because according to Socrates, what we saw last week was, even the teacher is not producing anything new to the students. What the teacher is doing is like a midwife. He is helping the children to bring their own knowledge through questioning. So once you are questioning somebody and you help the person to refine the answers, the person will discover that there is a lot of knowledge within himself or herself that had never been produced. Why? It had never been produced because it was not that antidote to question. And according to Rousseau and Socrates, the teacher is just there to assist the child, and this is what we call, in other words, pedagogy. Pedagogy, you are not teaching somebody like throwing knowledge to the person. It's like you are walking with the person. So to Jean Jacques Rousseau, it was just this sort of natural independence and curiosity which the child needs. And this is why the society is producing corrupt people, because even the children have no independence of thinking. And I think the Kenyan system of education maybe has been reviewed now with a modern way of looking at education. But before, it was a lot of information. Too much information to the young people without formation. And that is why, even I remember one time in a conference in Mombasa where I talked of information that brings to formation, and which generally and automatically brings transformation. If the education did not inform you to form you in order to transform you, then it was a waste of 20 years in school. And that is why sometimes you realize there are some courses people do, but they can't use them at all in the future, because probably this was a course of information, too much information. If you are not employed by someone else to reproduce the same information, then the course becomes useless. So Rousseau saw the child growing in this way. Between 0 to 12 years, the children are guided by simple impulses that are surrounding them. And those are children. But then we have the pre-adolescence, 12 to 16 years, where the children begin to develop reason and able to comprehend more abstract and philosophical ideas. Then we go to puberty and adulthood, which is 16 years and onward, where the children develop into adults and they can navigate in the society. Why do we have problems with these ages, especially 16 and above in Kenya? We are getting problems with these ages Because if you realize, as I have said, according to Jean Jacques Rousseau, at the age of 16, the child is already philosophizing on his own or her own. Is a thinking being, can make many decisions on his or her own. But the parents, especially in the societies in Africa, they are not ready to listen to the children. They want to say, you tell the child what to do and the child has to do it. And sometimes the children are facing a lot of questions and there is nobody who is ready to answer these questions until they start looking for the answers to their questions from different areas. From adults that are not well in ethics, from the Google, I talked of the social media last week, from different medias, from the young people who are now running the media, them themselves, they are not formed, and they were not formed, but now they are the ones forming the young ones. And therefore, at the end of the day, you realize, you parents, you live in a different world from your children. The children have their own world where everything you say is wrong is right to them. Why? Because probably in the development of these teenagers, we fail to recognize that they have their own questions. And these questions are valid. And even what is philosophy? Philosophy all begins with questions and wonders. And there is no question that is not philosophical, and there is no question that is not important. And therefore, once we don't listen to these young people, we don't answer their questions and their curiosities, what we are doing, we are slowly losing them. And they will continue questioning, and they will get answers. Where they get answers is where we don't know. The cases that we have been listening from the televisions and the radios, watching from the televisions and the radios, this is the outcome sometimes of not dialoguing and listening to them. And they also want to be heard. So what can we do? There are 4 distinct approaches to raising children. And this I can maybe explain better next time. We have authoritarian parents. You are an authoritarian parent if you believe in rules above all else. And discipline is non-negotiable. Then we have permissive parents. These are the parents that they are an absent parent, and therefore what they just do, they permit. I want to go for a sleepover. Do you understand what is a sleepover, young parents? You don't know. Then go for a sleepover Friday up to Sunday. They are permissive just because of their absence. And that type of parents are involved parents. They don't care how their children are growing up. Who do they talk to? Who do they chat with? Where do they visit? They are just not involved. So if you are authoritative, permissive, and uninvolved, then there is a danger that you are slowly losing your child into the society. A child that was born inherently good will become totally corrupt because of the influence of the society. So let's hope maybe we can continue with this dialogue and the discussions and see whether maybe there is a possibility of using Jacques Rousseau or David Hume next time to bring back these children whereby they feel accepted and they feel like their growth is respected by the parents and the society, such that we are not subjecting them to grow, we are letting them grow into good children as they were inherently born, according to Jean Jacques Rousseau. Till next time, goodbye. I wish you a good afternoon.
Coronavirus COVID-19 is a respiratory virus spreading across the world. The infection is spread from droplets of coughing and sneezing of an infected person, touching or shaking hands, or being in contact with contaminated surfaces or objects with the virus. The signs and symptoms are fever, coughing, headache, body ache, difficulty in breathing. The disease can be prevented by regularly washing hands with soap and running water. Avoid close contact with people who have flu-like symptoms. Avoid handshake, hugs, and kissing. Also, protect yourself by covering your mouth or nose using a disposable tissue while coughing or sneezing. If you experience these symptoms and you had traveled or been in contact with a person from a country reporting COVID-19, you should isolate yourself for 14 days and seek immediate medical attention or report to the nearest health center. This message has been brought to you by the Government of Kenya and its partners. For accurate information on COVID-19, dial *719# or call 719. Follow us on Twitter at @MOH_Kenya, at spokesperson GOK, at WHO.